Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to my YouTube channel. This episode is the 37th installment in my program, Social Change or Transformation. When? In our previous 7 episodes, from the 29th to the 35th installment, I dealt on the socio-economic problems visiting the Philippines and the world, starting from the evil of poverty that strangulates a large portion of the Philippines and the world's populations. I ended up with the misfortune of unemployment. In our long series of succeeding episodes, I will proceed to discuss the deteriorating social conditions obtaining in the Philippines and the world at large. Beginning this installment and following, I choose to give the title Deteriorating Social Conditions. Several years ago, I heard in a political rally one of the speakers complaining about worsening social conditions. Every minute of the day, he said, human bodies by the tens of hundreds are being buried in their graves or thrown into garbage cans or dumped on roadsides or grasslands or hurled into river banks. The speaker was expressing his regrets over what he describes as negligence in law enforcement tolerated by some abusive big shots in government. But what he bemoaned most especially were those that he called inroads of viciousness in the human spirit, which, in his view, engulfed almost large portions of societies, not only in the Philippines but all over the world. In his contention, it was because of widespreading depravities in today's generations that the world's societies are beset with lawlessness, killings or murders, holdups, kidnappings, rapes, prostitutions, abortions, and other misdemeanors. The latter part of that speech could have touched the hearts of the more than 5,000 listeners. What he singled out as the aggravating factor in the frequencies of high crimes was the state of unemployment of big numbers of people. If not of this, he reasoned, even the simple kinds of harassments or annoyances upon persons like insults, threats, swindling, or other offenses against properties, as larcenies and burglaries, could not have grown rampant in daily occurrences. He told of underworld characters playing impostors, pretenders, or cheats of all types, victimizing tens of thousands of our fellow men every day. The speaker's citations of numbers in astronomical proportions reminded us of a lesson in accounting, which stressed the importance of authenticated butchers. Entries without supporting papers were considered a source of recording fallacies, notwithstanding any allegation to the contrary. In crime newsmaking, however, what constitute true figures should be combined totals of both police registered crimes and the unregistered equivalent figures because of possibilities of a big number of crimes having had no benefit of police knowledge nor attention. That speaker could have been talking about statistics which embraced both officially known and privately kept in secret crime figures. Such malconditions in the lives of people often lead them into unproductiveness. Even worse, people are prone to the destructive indulgence in gambling and drug abuse, and in view of their lack of better things to do which could make them more progressive and pleasant, they naturally have to look for still other types of antisocial viciousness. The situations of the prevalence of criminality, abortions, divorce, illegitimate births, like the causatives of unemployment and or underemployment and poverty, or other circumstances resulting out of social, psychocultural, and spiritual debasements are not only happening in the smallest nations nor in the big ones. They do happen and are existing in medium-sized or fairly going nations in every part of the world. At this juncture, I will proceed to talk about drug perversions or drug abuse, or what is now more commonly referred to as drug addiction in its worst habitation, or just simply drug taking under its mildest cravings, has been growingly widespreading affliction worldwide, having not exempted the Philippines in its urge of causing human character damage. Such a growing menace which can destroy the future of our youth and eventually that of our country and the world has become beyond possibility of being kept from public awareness. Now, let me share with you the deplorable statistics of how many people have fallen victims to the evils of drug abuse or addiction in the Philippines, as well as the world at large. According to the NIDA, International Research Abstract Database of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, in its report entitled Social, Political, and Economic Context of Illegal Drug Abuse in the Philippines, which was published online, the occurrence of illegal drugs in the Philippines has not been accurately ascertained. It cites the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNODC, as having made the following estimates: that of the country's population above 15 years of age, the annual frequency for marijuana is 3.5%. For amphetamine-type stimulants, it's 2.8%, and for ecstasy, 0.01%. It also mentions the International Narcotics Control Strategy Report 2003 as having placed the estimate of about 1.8 million drug users in the Philippines, which, according to the said report, is equivalent to 2.2% of the population. On the other hand, according to Nimia Simbulan, Leonardo Istacio, Carissa Gioquino Maligaso, and other authors, in their article, The Manila Declaration on the Drug Problem in the Philippines, which appeared in the Annals of Global Health, published online on March 5, 2019, the Dangerous Drugs Board, or DDB, which is the Philippines government agency mandated to formulate policies on illegal drugs, has placed the same estimate of 1.8 million drug users in the Philippines, adding further that 4.8 million Filipinos have reported having used illegal drugs at least once in their lifetime. The same government agency further states that more than 3/4 of these drug users, representing 91%, are adults. 87% of them are males, and 80% have reached high school. More than 2/3, representing 67%, are employed. The Dangerous Drugs Board also adds that the most commonly used drug in the Philippines is a variant of methamphetamine called shabu, or what is commonly known as the poor man's cocaine. Furthermore, Nimia Simbulan, Leonardo Estacio et al., in their article I have just cited, likewise mentions a 2012 United Nations report as having made the observation that the Philippines, in fact, had the highest rate of methamphetamine abuse among countries in East Asia, stating that there are about 2.2% of Filipinos between 16 to 64 years of age who are users of this illegal drug. All over the world, there are more than a quarter of a billion people who are using drugs, and over 35 million people suffer from drug use disorders. This is according to the United Nations or UN Philippines Resident Coordinator Gustavo Gonzalez. In his opening remarks he delivered at the National Substance Use, Science, Policy, and Information Forum on Substance Use in the Philippines, Governance, Research, and Practice on June 15, 2021, which was published online the next day on June 16, 2021. In the words of Gonzalez, as open quote, as across the globe, the Philippine drug problem is deeply intertwined with a wide range of factors. He enumerated these factors as poverty, inequalities, poor access to healthcare, and systemic problems in governance. Closed quotation. Another report released on June 27, 2022 states that there were around 284 million people, 15 to 64 years of age, who were using drugs worldwide in 2020, which is a 26% increase over the previous decade, according to the source. In the United States alone, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, or NSDUH, there were 19.7 million Americans 12 years old and older who were battling a substance use disorder in 2017. Almost 74% of American adults who suffered from a substance use disorder were struggling with an alcohol use disorder. Another report released on June 24, 2019 states that almost 21 million Americans have at least one addiction, yet only 10% of them received treatment. Drug abuse deaths or drug overdose deaths have more than tripled since 1990. Alcohol and drug abuse addiction, according to the report, cost the U.S. economy over $600 billion every year. In each article, 5 world countries with the worst drug problems, which was published online, Michael's House Treatment Centers, basing its information on several sources, states that, open quote, many Americans believe the United States is home to the world's worst drug problems. Closed quotation ending. And then it states further, open quote again, but other countries actually experience higher rates of addiction. Making matters worse, many of these countries offer fewer opportunities for addiction treatment, leaving many drug users homeless and hopeless. Closed quotation. The article further asserts that news reports in the U.S. focus only on the country's drug problems, which mainly centers on the opioid epidemic. It says, open quote, with around 3.8 million people misusing prescription painkillers such as OxyContin and Vicodin, and opioid overdoses killing around 33,000 people in 2015, there are many reasons to take immediate action. Then it proceeds to cite 5 countries which it considers having been affected most severely by the drug abuse or addiction problem. Number one in its list is Iran. According to Michael's House Treatment Centers, in spite of Iran's fundamentalist Islamic religion that subject drug users or addicts to severe penalties, such as putting people with drug crimes to death, drug abuse or addiction rates in that country are comparatively high compared to other countries. Then second in the list is Afghanistan. Dubbed as the epicenter of the opium trade, Afghanistan, no doubt, is the world's number one producer of opium. According to Michael's House Treatment Centers, out of the country's population of 35 million, one news report places the estimate of 1 million Afghanistans who are addicted to drugs. In addition, world surveys, according to the same source, have shown that 90% of all heroin used in Europe can be traced back to this tiny mountainous country. The same source asserts that Afghanistan of all ages, including young children, are addicted to heroin. Then third in the list is Russia. According to Michael's House Treatment Centers, Russia is facing an intravenous drug use that has grown to become a very huge problem in that country. This is especially true among teenagers and young adults. Government officials have affirmed that there are around 1 million users of heroin in Russia. Other experts, however, believe the number is even closer to 2 million. Russia's drug abuse or addiction problem, according to our source, open quote, has risen dramatically after the fall of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, closed quotation. Then it includes the United States in its list. Michael's House Treatment Centers makes clear the emphasis that the United States definitely is not a big producer or trafficker of drugs. However, it makes the emphasis, according to the source, the country is among the world's top users of illicit substances. Our source goes on to say, open quote, Americans are the greatest risk of drug-related deaths and currently have the most people with prescription painkiller addictions in the world. Marijuana is the most commonly used illicit drug in America with 22.2 million current users, while 3.8 million people misuse prescription painkillers. In addition, more Americans now report using heroin than in years past, while cocaine use remains steady. Then, Great Britain. According to Michael's House Treatment Centers, Great Britain has more than 15 million people who reported having tried using drugs, and around 3 million take drugs on a regular basis. Our source states further that according to a 2014 figures, the number of British who are using drugs is up compared to the year 2008. It further asserts England, according to the source, open quote, England is one of the number one users of illicit drugs such as cocaine and heroin in Europe. Social mores in the United Kingdom make experimenting with drugs at an early age more acceptable. Teenagers and even preteens experiment with highly dangerous drugs at an early age. In our next episode, I'll discuss the depravity or the promiscuity of prostitution. If you enjoyed viewing my program, I'd like to invite you to please click the like button, and for those who have not placed their subscriptions yet, to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. By the way, my first book entitled Human Transformation, Why and What For, with my late father Moises R. Cadayday Sr. as my co-author, which has already been published, is now available for sale at Amazon.com. You may read a preview or you can buy a copy of this book from Amazon.com. It would be much appreciated if you can also write a critical review about it. Before I close this 37th episode, what does God's Word actually say about drug abuse or addiction? If we try to look for that word in the Bible, we may be frustrated. Why? Because that word addiction or addict was not, either of those words was not used at the time the Bible was written. Nevertheless, just because either addiction or addict is not directly mentioned in the Bible, that doesn't mean, of course, that the Bible is ignorant about it. Quite the opposite. God's Word, in fact, has a number of warnings about dangers of intoxication, either as a result of drinking intoxicated drinks or using illegal drugs. These warnings or admonitions can be read or interpreted as abuse or addiction. Here's a few of them. First is Isaiah chapter 5 verse 11. It says, "Woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may run after strong drink." I'm adding the word "or illegal drug." "Who tarry late in the evening, as wine or illegal drug inflames them." Another statement is in Proverbs chapter 20 verse 1. It says, "Wine," I'm adding the word "or illegal substance," "is a mocker, and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise." Then here's Ephesians chapter 5 verse 18. It says, "Do not get drunk on wine or illegal drug, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit." Here's another one, Proverbs chapter 23 verses 29 to 35. It says, "Who has sorrow? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine," I'm adding the word "or illegal drug, ... in the end it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things." Finally, for anyone who is addicted to wine or drugs, you may pray to our Almighty Father in heaven this prayer with me. It's in Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 14. Let's bow down our heads and pray. "Heal me, O Lord, from addiction to wine or illegal drugs, and I will be healed. Save me from being a drunkard or drug addict, and I will be saved. For you alone, O Lord, are the one I praise and worship." Amen. To God be the glory.